So let's discuss what barriers you are going to face as somebody that's trying to relay nutrition information to athletes, coaches, and even parents, depending upon the age of athlete you're working with. But generally, these are just barriers to nutrition as a whole. And as I'm going to reiterate later, nutrition is truthfully not that difficult of a science to kind of wrap around, right? I think in our heart of hearts, we know kind of what we're supposed to be doing, but we're impatient and we try to get there faster, right? And so we're kind of wooed by these claims that we can do better and do that thing, whatever it is, largely weight loss, but it could be anything, do that thing faster, right? So the barriers that you're going to face as a practitioner, but also in your own lives, just with being somebody who consumes food, is that headlines sell, right? So you look through Men's Health, Women's Health, anything like that. You're going to see that there's these flashy headlines that are really meant to get you to either click on the article if you're viewing it on social media, or to actually read the article further. So it's the headlines that are selling. And I can't tell you how many people are reposting stuff based on headlines alone without reading the article, that when you actually read the article, it is not at all what the headline implies. You're actually going to have an assignment about this coming up to kind of prove this point a little bit. The people that write the articles that you are reading probably are written by journalists, and journalists are not necessarily trained in health sciences or nutrition. So if you go to college, if you're to start this over and say, I'm going to be a journalism major, that teaches you how to write articles. That is not teaching you how to interpret scientific literature so that you can be a journalist that specializes in nutrition or whatever. So keep that in mind. There might be a background there, but it's not necessarily true. And to that end, they're not necessarily trained in just scientific literacy of any kind, right? So take health sciences out of it. They may not really truly understand what a crossover design means, whether you're talking about health science or not. They may not know what a placebo truly is. So you got to take that with a grain of salt, that the people writing the articles do matter. And I will say, not every time, I've got to be honest about that, but a lot of times I will look and see who wrote this article. And if they have the kind of credentials that seem like they are credible, then proceed, right? But if it's clear that they don't have a background in the thing they're writing about, it's not that it's invalid, but it does raise a little bit of a caution flag. So keep that in mind. Articles, but just kind of claims in general, like to base these claims off of one study. One study shows this, right? And if you read articles on a regular basis, a recent study said this. That's a very common kind of phrase to read. That's interesting in and of itself. But one study does not make or break the rules that we have in nutrition and sport nutrition specifically. I am much more interested in the greater body of evidence. So if you have 100 articles, I'm going to pick caffeine, for example. You have 100 articles. 98 of them, so it would be 98%, 98 of them say that caffeine improves sport performance, okay? One of them shows that nothing happens, neither an improvement or a decrement. One study of that 100 showed that performance actually decreased 20% in response to caffeine ingestion, right? 98% of the articles say it's a good thing and it's going to be beneficial, but one actually says it's going to hurt my performance by 20%. That's a lot, right? So if I am a critical individual, I will say 98% of them say it's pretty good. I would say that the evidence is leaning towards a positive effect. Somebody that might be kind of fooled by the headlines would say, someone's performance went down 20% because they took caffeine. I'm not taking caffeine ever again. 1 out of 100 said that. And if you look at the methodology, I'm willing to bet if you saw that article, there's something fishy going on, right? Maybe not, but I'm willing to bet that it's at least worth a look, right? So you got to look at the greater body of evidence rather than just what one study says. We also have lack of context, right? So one study shows that if you walk 4,000 steps a day, it improves your health. But the study that I'm actually referring to was done in frail, elderly women. So if I took that study and said, oh, well, all I have to do is walk 4,000 steps a day, that's way better than the 10,000 people have been telling me. You're taking the study out of context. And it's not to say we can't apply certain parts of that study to our own lives, right? But to take it at its 100% word is oftentimes a mistake. And that's what people will do. And if you read articles, sometimes those key details are left out, or they're pushed all the way to the bottom of the article because, as we know, we read the first couple of paragraphs, and then as the article goes on, our attention wanes, and we tend to click back out of it and not read it to the final end. So we've got to make sure that when we are evaluating for ourselves, but also when athletes come to us with questions, we make sure that that we're aware of the context of the article and the research that they might be looking